some Cora Wahl. And my family has a ranch down in Elk River and up on Langlois Mountain, so here in town. And I grew up on that, and so I came back and worked for them for about 4 years. And then Woody was starting this, and I started Wild River's Lamb, which is just a meat selling business. And we both left the job down there at the same time and kind of combined and have done the farm and the meat direct sales together. So, but Woody really is the one who came up with the idea for the dairy, and
I don't know about that.
And I'll let him say the name of it because it's his.
Well, I'll tell you one thing though, is that she's being modest. She left college and worked on her family's operation, which I worked at too. Her family's operation has about 4,000 ewes just south of us. It's a huge, one of the biggest in Oregon, and so she's being modest. And Cora was a manager down there for a long time.
Of the bummers.
Of the bummers and the other things too.
The king of the bummers.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did a lot of lamb stuff.
Yeah. I jumped on board. I guess I chased her down here or whatever, and worked for her family for a while. And this operation was a way to kind of start it. We don't have any land base. Her family has her ranch, but they're still running it, and we kind of wanted our own thing, and so we decided to how niche could we get? So we went all the way niche market and started a sheep dairy together. And
the dairy's called Woodrow Farms, and that's Woody's middle name is Woodrow. His real name's actually not Woody; it's Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron Woodrow Babcock. But
yep,
it stuck. Woodrow Farms came from when I was younger, and I had a small group of sheep, and I thought it'd be called Woodrow Farms, and so we named the dairy Woodrow Farms. But yeah, that's kind of a combination. And
so you're always going to wonder somewhere in your heart if he wanted you for the information that was in your brain, if he quoted you for that, or if he quoted you for.
It's a little bit of both. I don't know.
It was a business plan.
Yeah, we don't know. We're trying to get milk out of the sheep to sell sheep milk, so we're kind of separating nature from the picture. But these lambs are artificially reared, so as soon as we can get them off an artificial milk replacer onto a grain, the more profit it is for us in the grand scheme of things, you know. So, but that all being said, too, you have to take care of health from day one. It's so intensive that you can't let lambs fall behind. And so, if you look over here, where Cora is. And here we have a few of the lambs that have fell behind, but for the most part they're still doing pretty well. But we're at the tail end of lambing, and what you end up with is, you know, a couple of lambs that have fallen behind, and then just a lot of the late lambers too. So Cora right here is feeding lambs. They all have to be training lambs. Yes, they all have to be trained to understand the artificial system. Some lambs don't care. Some lambs need a couple days of training, because obviously that is not a used udder. That is a 5-gallon bucket with nipples in the side of it. So.
I kind of wondered how you did that en masse, because we were over at Join Martin's, and just a couple in the kitchen was a day's work.
So it's her. That's you see that lamb? Yeah. That lamb actually came back from the field, and that's because Cora knows how to train them so well. It's taken years of experience, and I don't deal with this. This is Cora's.
I leave for a day and
I get a bottle out and I try to get him as fed as I can.
It's just training. So basically, we just have the nipples and the tubes go down, and I'm just here basically to guide them and show them where it is, show them where their new mom is, I guess. And it really only takes about, a good healthy lamb, it'll take them about a day to figure it out. And then they pretty much do it on their own. And they start here, this is training pen. And then once they know how, they go to the next pen, and that's a self-feed. I don't get in here and help them eat at this point. And then they just move down the line. We're at the end of lambing, so there's only 2 pens, but normally there's like 4 pens of milk buckets. And then they get weaned at 21 days and go on to their grain ration.
Okay, so I have to ask you the silly questions first. One, why are some wearing paint?
Oh, you mean the coats?
Yes. Well, there's sweaters, and then there's a little dot. You have different colors on them, unless sheep are coming in different colors than they used to.
Yeah. So these are what we call Lambie Jammies. My grandma makes them, and she named them. And so basically, because they're, East Friesian, that's the breed of sheep. They're kind of a little more of a delicate breed. And because they don't have their moms to lay next to, we put the coats on just as extra protection, mostly for at nighttime. Just give them that little step up and keep them warm. And then usually they get them taken off within a day or two. And then the coloring has to do with how old they are. So I keep record in a book, and then I have a system on my phone that I keep when they were born, and then that tells me when I process them and put their ear tags and stuff in, I give them a mark to determine their age, and then that tells us when they're ready to be weaned and to go on to grain off milk.
Yeah, we talked to a gal in Colorado, Uji McGuire, and she raises black Welsh mountain sheep, and she's a computer program. She wrote something called her lamb tracker program, and she's actually microchipped them. So every time she does something like worming, she just says worming and goes bing, 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 and then it keeps it. Because there's a lot of record keeping in this. You guys have to do math.
Yeah,
there's
so
a lot of
we dream in the next, hopefully it's in our near future to actually go with what, I don't know if that's what she was using, but EID ear tags, and being able to keep track of every lamb by, you just read their ear tag and say, okay, this is what we did, or when you vaccinate, you can just identify them, and that would help us a lot. It's a huge expense, is the reason we've gone with the manual system, and Cora knows Excel and documents way better than I do, and she's helped to keep track of that. So on her phone, she has all the lambing record on her phone, which is really nice because
it's really not complicated. It's really just Excel, and then I just open it and it has everyone, the day they were born, what ewe it was, the gender, and then the lamb's ear tag.
Yep.
That's really smart, though.
And if they've had any medicine, so we find a lot of correlation in genetic history. So if they've had any medicine, then Cora keeps track of that too, and then we can look through on our records when we're selecting for the next generation. Who is our best milk producers, who is our most least problematic animals, and all that kind of stuff, and work through it that way. The EID program would be a lot quicker and easier, but someday we'll get there.
Can I ask, if it's not too personal, what does expensive mean in the sheep world? What would it be to put EID trackers on, let's say, 100 sheep or something?
It actually, in the grand scheme of things, would probably actually not be that expensive for the time we spend on that. But being a new dairy, every dollar counts.
Sure.
So I would.
Do you remember what they are?
It's about $2 an ear tag. For that, and then the program itself is, I think, give or take, and I may be wrong, some cow dairy farmers can tell me I'm wrong here, but I think it's like $3,000 a year for the program. And so the grand scheme of things, it's a startup that's the most expensive. So if we have 200 ewes, then then all of a sudden we're going to have a $3 an ear tag cost on just the 200 ewes, and then the lambs coming in there too. So it's one of those things we really want to do, but we have a list of things we want to spend money on.
Our wish list of future expenses.
And this is working well enough right now that it kind of stays in the middle of the list. It hasn't quite bumped to the top yet.
I don't know a person on the planet that doesn't do things like that. What can I afford to do, and what can I fake my way through until I have to? Yeah. So I can see how this is an incredibly time-intensive part here. The training and the beginning lamb part, and this lasts for how long every year?
So we lamb out for about 6 weeks, and that's about how long I spend in here. From the day we start lambing until the last lamb that comes through. So about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Little sleep during that time, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time in this barn.
In the beginning, it's pretty rough because Cora might have, I don't know how many, 200 lambs on milk, but.
So I just have to ask, and you don't have to answer this one either. Did you plan your family planning around lambing season?
Yeah.
Because I planned my stuff around tax season.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. I think it actually worked out for the best this time. Sorry, that word there. Worked out the best I had some pretty bad morning sickness, so I was glad I wasn't first trimester during, and second trimester you kind of get that boost of energy, right? Which was right when lambing happened. And now I'm in third and we're at the tail end, so
Perfect
winding
timing.
down right as I'm like getting a little uncomfortable.
Just like you did a spreadsheet for it, right? Just everything's organized. Beautiful.
I don't know if it was really thought out all that. I mean,
We definitely knew that starting a family, we didn't want to have it happen right when lambing started, because I take care of lambs after they're off milk, but if they were on milk when and Cora wasn't available, you would see a drastic explosion basically. And so it takes I need Cora here for this part.
Now, tell me why you mentioned that these are East Friesians. Tell me why you picked East Friesians.
you're gonna go ahead and answer that one.
East Friesians was, I guess that's what was available, but also I compare like an East Friesian to a Holstein cow. So Lacombe and East Friesian are two of your more common milk breeds. There's other ones out there, just like the cattle industry. An East Friesian I would compare to a Holstein, and I would compare a Lacombe sheep to a Jersey cow. And so East Friesians were available. They're heavy milkers. They're good, pretty good sheep. We knew a little bit about them. We've kind of worked with them a little bit before this, at least a breed that had some East Friesian in them. So we went with that, In the grand scheme of things, on sheep comparison is that if you take like the ewes outside, which we'll see in a minute, compared to an East Friesian, it's like taking an Angus cow and a Holstein cow. And that's your separation. An Angus cow is hardy. They can take care of themselves, whereas a Holstein is, not near as hardy. East Friesians are very similar. East Friesian and then like a Coopworth or a Romney sheep outside or a Dorset, that's the same comparison. And so we just went with that because really that was what was available, but that's kind of what we
you're looking
want.
for milk production, and that's the breed,
Yeah.
Lacombe and Friesian. Those are the breeds that you're going to get the most milk from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I could just see this is an incredibly time-intensive thing, but once you get past this, they move around the barn and then out in the field they go, right?
Yeah. So the ones out there, so these don't go out in the field, generally speaking. They stay in the barn most of the time. Those on the other side, though, as far as time consumption goes, those require almost no, they do require time for bedding and that kind of stuff and feeding, but they require probably, a tenth of the time that these require over here. And that's just because they know how to eat, feed, grain. They're on grain now. They know how to eat grain. They know how to self-sustain for themselves and that kind of stuff. So by the time they get over there, they're a piece of cake, not a problem.
So these, not the females, not all the females, some females and all the males will end up going to market, and they're not what we direct sale, but they are, they go to a market that takes grain-fed lambs, and so that's where they're in this barn and then they get shipped out.
So that maybe helps you, that's a little extra additional income, and the lamb doesn't go to waste because it's going to go to market. It's either going to go to somebody who wants lamb for themselves or to the meat production facility? Okay.
So most of our lambs go to, actually most of our lambs from the dairy, not from the stuff out on pasture, and not from the stuff Cora sells. Most of the lambs in this barn go to an ethnic market, actually. They're looking for a smaller lamb, a smaller fat lamb, and that's where we sell most of those. And the reason being is that when they enter the system, selling them at a younger weight and getting them as quick as we can is our most profitable margin. And so generally speaking, the ethnic market really likes a smaller fat lamb. And so it works really well for us. We can get those lambs there. Not all the females, but a good chunk of the females will stay into the herd because we're still in a growth period where we want to keep milking more and more every year. So
I'm looking at the size of this, and again, we were at Martin and Joy's, and we had ewes and lambs, and this can go to a very messy experience, at least in something like we saw over there. It can be crystal clean, and then 2 days later, it's a mess.
Yeah.
Absolutely a mess.
It's just the whole operation is really a maintenance nightmare. You know?
And you have to, or they're not healthy, right?
Yeah. Well,
It
exactly.
affects their health.
Yeah.
If you don't stay on top of the bedding and the clean out and keeping fresh water and clean milk, like these buckets get cleaned every day, if you don't stay on top of that, then you directly see it'll show up in them. They'll start getting sick. You'll have
It's like a bunch of little tiny toddlers. And if you let them do their own thing, then they're not going to be clean.
So I mean, you have tiny toddlers for months, and then it's not like it goes away 100% after that. Do you ever get to go and have a couple days in the mountains or on the beach in Hawaii?
We are seasonal. Our milking is seasonal. So it's from when we lamb, which this year was January, and it'll go hopefully until September, October this year. And then you have that downtime where you're breeding and there's maintenance because you have to take care of animals and you have to be here every day. But it's not nearly as intensive. So there is that time where, you know, if we have someone, we had our employee last year watch stuff while we were gone on our honeymoon. So there's opportunity there.
And even here in about 2 months or so, it comes a deal where, you know, we could actually take off for 2 days. We have to be here every 3 days to empty the tank and take care of that stuff. But we have a milker and we could take off for 2 days, especially when these guys are all established and going fine. So it looks like a lot, and it is a lot for a while, but we do have time, you know. So.
Well, okay, you mentioned opportunity. You have a relationship with the Creamery. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
You made that yourself, that little opportunity, I understand.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a call from Woody, was what we heard.
Yeah, so Brad Cinco, that's Face Rock Creamery, and Brad got on board, Greg got on board, and you know, it's been a great relationship ever since, and it's so close. It's 10 miles away up the road. Great to work with, great people to talk to and ask for ideas, and also, you know, discuss about our quality. You know, they don't, you know, they're a good operation to work with. So, and then we've also grown a little over what Face Rock really needs for there. So we do also sell quite a bit of milk down in California now too. In the last year to a ice cream facility down there.
Those crazy San Diegans, no.
No. Is that and Paso Robles?
Oh, Paso. Okay.
Yep,
okay.
yep. And the Granti Creamery. So working with them and working with Face Rock, we couldn't have asked for two better operations, honestly, to work with. I mean, it's great. It works really well. And the nice part about it is Face Rock makes cheese, so they can sell their cheese. They make ice cream. We don't feel conscious of, you know, any competition between the two of them, you know, and it works out really well.
Well, it works out well for them too, because he was very impressed with the taste of this. He says it's a whole different thing when it's fresh right off the farm and it's right next door. He says it really tastes
I didn't say that a second ago, and the one thing about it is that we couldn't have been luckier is because Brad is, and the truth be told, is Brad is probably on a list of cheesemakers in the world. Brad is up there, and I've heard that not from Brad, from a lot of other people, and we couldn't have been more lucky to find a person like him who wants to work with this milk, because I mean, he's making a cheddar out of it, which is kind of, as far as I know, a little bit unheard of, you know, making cheddar out of sheep milk, and it's to die for. It's good stuff.
So what is the norm that you would think that would be made out of sheep's milk?
So you get a lot of like pecorino or manchego. You hear that a lot. Fresh cheeses are big, kind of the soft, fresh feta. Yeah, so
that makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yes, and cheddar is not a cheese that comes up when you start talking sheep milk. So he definitely
is outside the box.
Interesting what he's doing. Yeah.
So, but Oregon is known for quite a few different types of cheese, and more all the time.
Face Rock won Best Cheddar in the United States. I think it was 2015 or no, 16.
Twice
is it now?
I think
so
American Cheese Association.
Yep,
or something?
yep.
Yeah.
And which is phenomenal. Rogue Creamery last year won Best Blue Cheese in the world, which is an American country, and that Rogue is out of, you know, Grants Pass.
Isn't that great?
And that's, I mean, so it's phenomenal. And actually, what's funny is Brad Cinco at Face Rock tells me that he sold, the guys who started Rogue Creamery, he sold them their first curds so they could start their creamery, basically so they could have something to sell. So it's kind of a neat, the whole connection around it. But Rogue won Best in the world on blue cheese. Face Rock's won Best in the United States on their cheddar, I guess twice now. I didn't know this. I mean, but Brad wins awards all the time. He has a whole list of them on his wall. But But no, it's a great place to. It's funny because
Maybe
people
we're like up and coming Wisconsin.
That's what I was going to say. People think, and actually I saw something one time, and I hope nobody in Wisconsin watches this and chews me out, but I saw a thing on post online, and it said, you know, Wisconsin's known for cheese, but actually cheese is better in Oregon, you know. But
Well, you've rolled into something that, Cora, you and I started talking just a teeny little bit about. You were wanting to sell some of your milk last year. And we're in the COVID time, and the food supply has taken a big hit. We've found some of the weaknesses in the chain. So tell me about, please, what you were talking to me about before.
Yeah, so last year was, and Woody, you can stop me at any point and interject. Last year was definitely rough. I mean, we went in thinking this is going to be a great year. Our production was looking great. Animals were healthy. It was just like, this is going to be a good year. And went into it, and then COVID hit. And Creamery shut down. Like most everything, things just shut down. And when the Creamery shuts down and you're producing milk, your milk can't just sit for months and wait. We can freeze, but we did have limited space, and we hit that pretty fast. So we didn't have anywhere to go with the milk. We did what I think a lot of farms did, is we did have to dump, which was pretty painful to watch. You milk for 3 days, which is the limit on how long you can leave the milk in the tank before you have to either sell to the Creamery or freeze. And then you do all that work, and then you just open the drain and watch it go away.
That's heartbreaking, but you cannot stop milking. It's not like you can say, okay, let's just hold off production for a little bit.
Yeah, no, if you stop, your animals stop producing, and then you're done for the season. And at that time, there was hope. Everyone hoped this would just be a short-term thing. You know, what was it? We'll just close down for a couple weeks, and then we'll be back open. So we were just thinking, okay, we just got to get through this, and then we can be back to selling. Everything will open up maybe. And then it just kept going. And so we actually started bottling our milk, finding other outlets to get rid of it. And it worked. We ended up picking up a lot of clients in a short period of time. Took us a lot of effort to get that going. But it was a logistical nightmare. You had to take it to a bottling facility, certified facility, and we didn't have the finances to put together our own, or the time. You know, you're in a time crunch.
You have to leave your animals and your farm and everything else to do that.
Huh.
Yeah, well, if we wanted to invest in our own equipment and do it here, which would have been the most, logistically made the most sense, but that takes time to set all that up and takes money, and we didn't have either of those. So we ended up going through a third party to bottle, and then we had to distribute that and do some direct sales, and then we ended up spending so many hours doing that. And
I got to interject here quickly. So I used to drive to Tillamook once a week. From here to Tillamook is 4.5 hours. So on a Saturday, generally, or a Sunday, Saturday I think most times, I would drive to Tillamook with fresh milk, and I'd drop it off, and I'd drive home. And on a Sunday or Monday, just let I interject because Cora's not going to tell you, is that she would drive in the reefer van out there. She would drive from here to Tillamook, pick up all the bottles, label all the bottles, go from Tillamook to Portland to drop off, go from Portland to Eugene to drop off, go from Eugene go to Albany to drop off, and then to Eugene, and then every other week from there, she'd always drive all the way to Ashland or Medford, Ashland, drop off, and then drive all the way back here. Like 16.5 hours of driving straight. And she used to pull it off. I just drove to Tillamook. That was there and back, and I thought I was having a hard time, but she used to do that whole entire loop, and it worked, but it was...
We did sell, it was just, there wasn't enough profit for how much time we were putting in, and it was, we started to get to the point where we didn't like the dairy anymore. So after the year ended, we stopped lactating, which we stopped lactating early, because freezers were full and the milk was working, but we were just dead tired. So then we stopped lactating early, and then we had a lot of people sad when we told them we weren't going to bottle milk this year. But the creameries are open again, so we're able to sell milk that way, and that's what we enjoy. We enjoy farming and then sending it to someone who can make this great product and do this marketing and sales themselves. And the bottling, it's not off the plate for the future, but we needed a break.
Yeah, it's so ironic. We heard this from the Milking Devon people back east too. That they had milk and they had to throw it away.
Yeah.
And that's so funny because it's terrible because sometimes there's no milk on the shelves everywhere else, and yet there's this gap.
Time, yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say I'm not going to say the name of the company until they actually do it, but there is a company here in Oregon that is actually strongly looking into bottling milk, sheep milk, in the next year, which is really, we're really hopeful of that, because we had a huge following by the time we were done, and it was a great product, I think, and we both did. Everybody liked it.
It's not. I think a lot of people think sheep are like goats, and so you think that kind of strong flavor that you get from goat milk, but it's really not. It's just like cow milk but sweeter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever tasted sheep milk.
It's so delicious.
As close as I got. Is it?
Yeah.
It is really delicious, and I know I'm a little biased. But
I'm super bland. I couldn't ever drink goat's milk. Nothing against goat's milk. I'm just super bland. I'm a basic 2% cow milk person. Even whole cow milk, I drink the heck out of it now. But it has a really good flavor to it.
Even he liked it, is what he's trying to say.
Yeah, I loved it. So
Yeah.
there is a person in Oregon who's looking into it and kind of putting together a plan to build a facility, which is phenomenal, because there's nobody else in the United States who bottles sheep's milk, and it would be pretty cool if it continued on. So.
I think it would be pretty cool. I will tell you, I'm right there in the goat's milk. I like goat's milk, but it has to be alfalfa-fed goat's milk.
I've heard that from people.
Because otherwise it tastes very goaty. So what do you feed your sheep? And does sheep milk do the same thing when you don't feed them the same way?
We switched feed quite a bit last year. During the lactation period, majority of their diet is alfalfa hay. And then in the parlor, we do supplement additional grains. So a little bit of corn, soy, and peas is what we additionally supplement in the parlor. And that's just to boost their energy, basically, kind of an energy boost to get their milk production higher for us. But majority of their diet is alfalfa hay. So good quality alfalfa hay goes a long, long ways.
Is it inputs and outputs? Do they equal? I mean, if you feed something that's higher in nitrogen or higher in basic micronutrients, does that come out in the milk as well?
I don't know if we've played enough with it to know the answer to that yet.
We found a solution that works really well for us, and we haven't. Like I said, this is our third year of business, and so we haven't had the opportunity too much yet to really kind of screw with or mess around with. Our production's at a level that is above average from what I understand about other people in their operations, and so it's one of those things where we're still trying to make this thing profitably work. And so I think that by playing with the feed, we could get more, but we could also make a mistake and get less.
A little scary.
So we kind of stuck with it for right now.
That's smart.
And it's worked out well. Last year, though, during the COVID deal, when we were kind of shutting everything down, we cut out all the grains. We went to straight alfalfa, and we didn't see a huge drop in our milk production. We saw a difference in flavor. Yeah.
There was a little bit, but I'm not sure it was.
The sweetness went out of the milk a little bit, just a little bit though, but you still didn't get an off flavor.
And we were still bottling at that point, and I don't know if it ever came up from customers. I don't know if we ever got feedback that, I don't recall.
No, I don't think we ever did. I think we were testing it all the time, and we thought the sweetness when we stopped kind of feeding the grains kind of went out of it, but still, it was still a good flavor. I would imagine that, putting them on, like you said, some brushy, nasty stuff would probably throw it off a little bit, but I don't know with sheep compared to goats. Sheep won't eat the brushy, nasty stuff. Goats will, sheep won't. A sheep will starve before it eats a blackberry bush, where a goat will do better on a blackberry bush and a good blade of grass, so who knows.
Now that must make fencing easier, I would think, with sheep than it does with goats, because the goat will just eat its way through a
We had two pet goats, and we got rid of them because we couldn't keep them in.
It's
a long story, but it was not at all a tense time, but we had two pet goats that were just fun. We were just given to us, and I finally had to tell Cora, we got to get rid of these. And then she talked me into keeping them, and they were great. They were actually really, really fun. But the problem is that they were here, there, in the grain barn, over there, over there, over there. We put fences up, we do everything, and they were just all over the place. So
Yeah, they didn't stay in anything. And
Yeah.
you just watch them. They would just be standing, and then they just bound right over like a 4 or 5
I'd watch
foot
them,
gate.
and they go into the U-barn, and they'd run along a wall like this, and they'd jump. And you might have a fence this tall, but they'd jump on that wall, hit that wall, and bound themselves over the fence and be in the U-barn. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well,
I
this
want
is,
to
Sheep don't do that. They're
Yeah,
much
sheep don't do
easier
that.
to contain.
yeah, sheep don't want to exert too much energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You
well,
will find
wait.
us milking goats